Glenn, thank you. Would y'all give me a chance first to thank Glenn Gould? Glenn has worked hard to put these together this year. He's done a great job. I think this is the first time, Candace, we've ever done anything quite like this in the chamber. It's been great. Glenn, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's a very creative gentleman, isn't he?
He is a very creative gentleman. We've had some great profiles. We've talked with 3 people previously who kind of grew up in their industry. They started there very, very early. They stayed there. Steve Mater is going to be a little unique. He didn't start in the auto industry. I'm going to let Steve Mater talk about himself, but what I wanted to tell you this morning is Steve will be unique among these profiles because nobody, and I mean nobody, started the way that Steve Mater started.
Oh, God, that's pretty funny.
You set me up.
Yeah.
Steve Mater.
What would you like? How do you want to start this?
How did it all start, Steve? The bio.
Bio. Well, I was born in that far back.
Yeah.
Born in Pittsburgh. My father was worked in the steel mills at Westinghouse, and my mother worked part-time selling ladies' clothes. I was the first on both sides of the family to go to college. Now, after that, my cousins followed through. I went to a school in '67 called Edinburgh State College, and as most state universities, they graduated university status somehow. One of the reasons why I went to Edinburgh, there were actually 2, and this is true. Edinburgh was prepared to pay for my college education, not because I was a very smart young man, because of our economic circumstances. And second, the University of Pittsburgh sent my application back. I couldn't even fill it out right.
And they opened it.
They opened it, but it came back very quickly. I ended up graduating from Edinburgh after a short stint. Well, going back a little further, I did have a good time when I was in college, and again, this is a part of the true story. The first semester, I was put on social probation. The second semester, I made it to academic probation. The third semester, I made it to disciplinary probation. So I had a really good thing going, and my mother was getting these letters every 6 months, and every time the letter would come in, she'd start crying, bless her heart. So finally, my grades dropped to the point my second semester junior year, and they denied me admittance for my second semester. My first semester junior year, my grades dropped. They denied me readmittance, so I had to stay out a semester. I had to do two or three things. One, either go to summer school or get a grade change. And it's sure a whole lot easier to talk a professor into changing a grade. Yeah. But during that time, I think the letter came in January denying me admission, and the next week I received that very friendly, warm letter from the United States government of greetings and salutations. Oh. So I go down for a physical, and I failed the physical. I'm a pretty happy guy. This is 1970. I'm a pretty happy guy. So I take my papers with reject 1Y and go to the very end to give it to the last gentleman, and he asked me if I wanted to enlist, and I explained to him that was, that wasn't going to happen. So I went back to school, I wrote a paper for my philosophy teacher. In fact, I went to the psychology teacher first. No, excuse me, I went to the philosophy teacher first. Guy's name was Dr. Drain. I figured it was a cinch. He looked at me and said no. So from there I went to the psychology professor, laid my wares out. He said, write me a paper. So I stayed up there for 3 weeks, wrote the paper, got the grade changed, got back in school. Then, from that point on, I made the dean's list. My mother was very happy. I graduated, I got a minor. But I got my degree I got a Bachelor of Science in Education. So I came back to Pittsburgh, started teaching, but I didn't get a full-time job teaching. I was substituting. Apparently they saw my academic record. And they weren't too interested in a full-time guy like me. A friend of mine, who I lived with in college, had a brother working in Pittsburgh selling hair transplants. And they were opening an office in Atlanta. And he asked me if I'd be interested in interviewing for the job. And since I wasn't working full-time, and I was working part-time at that time, working on the road crew with the county. We were cutting weeds, painting barriers, digging ditches, cleaning out sores, laying asphalt, all that fun stuff you do with a 5-year degree. Yeah. So when he said, yeah, I said, sure. I went to New Jersey, got hired. Apparently nobody else interviewed for the job. I loaded up my Camaro with no air conditioning and drove south. So I got to Atlanta in September of '72, and we opened up an office selling hair transplants, and that worked for about 2.5 years. They went out of business, probably through no fault of mine. Can't imagine. There was a competitor of mine that asked me to join him, and his business was probably worse than mine, so I did that for 6 months. Ran out of money. Totaled my car. Didn't have the insurance to replace it, and I'm looking for a job that supplies transportation. So the only job that I could find that supplied the transportation happened to be in auto sales. When I went to interview for it, they told me it was 6 days a week. I really wasn't interested in working 6 days a week. So I kept looking. Well, now I'm also running out of money, and had no choice. Went back. I said, I'm ready to start. He said, well, you can't start today. You have to start. And he gave me a time period. I said, it's too long. He said, no, you start that Monday. So that Monday I showed up at Colonial Lincoln Mercury, which was in Buckhead, sort of directly across from Huff Furniture. If anybody remembers where Huff Furniture is, I think it's still there. And I showed up Monday morning with a sleeping bag, the clothes I had, and I think a little black and white TV. They put me into a conference room, a lot smaller than this, watching training tapes. It was called Catterson. And I watched the Catterson tapes all day, and they closed at 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, the guy's name that hired me was Bob Hunt. Bob says, time for you to go. I said, no, I'll just stay here. He says, no, you can't stay here. You have to go. I said, you don't understand. I got no place to go. I'll stay here. He said, come on with me. So he takes me home. I move in with him and his wife. And they just had a brand new baby, by the way. Babies, and I don't really remember how old Sean was at the time, but just a few months old. So he takes in somebody he knew for 24 hours tops. Moves in with he and his wife. They feed me. They give me a place to live for about 3.5 weeks until I got enough money accumulated to rent an apartment. That's how I got started in the car business.
Wow.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
And by the way, I wasn't panicky. I wasn't scared. I wasn't bothered.
What year?
That was 1976.
Steve, when you look back on it, what was it that kept you in the car business?
Well, I think, first of all, it was fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun selling cars, and it's immediate gratification. You know, you sell a car, you get a check.